Just we are too warm for the warm up. Then lower intensity.
Apocalypse World bunker.
My apocalypse
I don't
world.
know. That's the color's weird.
Okay.
But yeah, we're warming up.
Yeah, just usual. Copying the links to everywhere else.
I see Urim has joined us. Hey Urim. Lanchi has shot a like. YouTube. No one else yet. Hey Urim. I'm really now wondering who. Hey Nick.
Part of the mysteries that we shall try to explore today.
Hey Mitch. Hey Karen. Oh wow. My glasses are like super reflecting monitors and lights.
Well, you didn't pay extra for like the
Coated.
super fancy.
Look at that. It magnifies my eyes. The reading portion at the bottom. Hey, Javan. So yeah, lots of you are on Facebook, but supposedly YouTube has the clearer stream. So feel free to jump between the two whenever you want to. But yeah, it is 9:10. I guess it's safe enough to start. What do you think?
I guess, sure.
This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy, a little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
This is completely unscripted, not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us, we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. Today's episode was an episode where Rocky had some trouble thinking of a title.
I didn't want to do the obvious title, but then we'll just do the obvious title, which is such fun with Miranda. And because we're talking about the British television show Miranda. And I always get mixed up when we're talking about British TV because they call seasons series. So then it's weird to call it a TV series because a series is a season. So I'll just say TV show instead of a series.
So Miranda is what they call a cringe comedy because the funny parts are the parts that make you cringe, but not in disgust, but more in a weird shared sense of shame.
It's like uncomfortable empathy for what she's going through, I guess.
It's created by Miranda Hart, who also wrote the episodes.
Yeah,
and it was
mainly her piece.
Yeah, and it was originally aired originally written to be a semi-autographic BBC Radio 2 comedy called The Miranda Hart's Joke Shop.
And you can get a copy of that on things like Audible. I have listened to it. It's less than 2 hours. It is essentially the first season. It is pretty much the first season as an audio drama, audio sitcom. I don't know. It's funny. It's so funny.
So um, we were struggling to remember how we got into the show, and I can't help but feel it was Jovan who recommended it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure it's one of our friends that brought it up, or did we all just simultaneously kind of get into it around the same
I
time?
can't remember. Was it Jovan? Was it Mitch? Was it?
No, it wasn't Mitch. We weren't talking to Mitch at that time. We weren't FGTC yet because we were already talking about it in 2012, 2013. So
Mhm.
that's pretty way back. So
Mhm.
I can't remember. I can't remember, but I know a friend mentioned it. I'm pretty sure we didn't discover it on our own.
Mhm.
And once we did, oh my gosh, it was super funny. And we just
Yeah,
got lost from
I
there.
can't help but feel it might have been an office tangent.
See, Jovan says, must be me.
Yeah, because it was sort of like we love The Office so much, and then kung gusto mo yung The Office, then you have to watch this Miranda. Ang kulit, and that sort of a tangent.
Yeah, and I think the
So
bigger
there, Nick remembers it was Jovan. Yeah, yeah.
and it was just a bigger struggle though is that as is the case with many British television shows is that sometimes you're not entirely sure if it's canceled or not and
Mm-hmm.
that there are long gaps, but it also attributes to the fact that Miranda Hart has many projects. For those unfamiliar, she was also on British shows like Call the Midwife, which
Mm-hmm.
is more of a drama, but she was quite brilliant there. I loved her character there. So, but no, we're talking about Miranda.
So Miranda, the series Miranda revolved around
The show.
the show Miranda revolved around Miranda, a 6'1" um, woman who is sometimes mistaken as a man, who had this dream of buying a joke shop as her main reason and dream in life.
She achieved this dream,
Mhm.
much to the dismay of her mother. And the show kind of revolves around that she is
Socially awkward. She breaks into song at the most unexpected moments. She can be quite dense at sometimes because of, I guess, her way of seeing the world.
hmm,
And a large part of the show is the fact that she is clearly into the other character in the show, Gary,
Gary.
whom may or may not share the same feelings. But
Okay, yeah, because we're trying to do a non-spoilery thing, and
Mm.
like if you haven't like gotten into the show, then there's still a
Mhm.
chance.
So
Because
Gary,
it's essentially done.
yeah, Gary is played by Tom Ellis, who you might know from shows like Lucifer or the less popular Rush, where he was a doctor
Oh
and
yeah.
handling things here and there. But Miranda and Tom actually had worked in other shows together.
Hmm.
One of them being Monday Monday, which was a different show that we never really got into.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. People in the comments are of course sharing stuff already they love from about the show.
Yeah, I mean the show has a lot of like iconic lines that build up so well throughout the series, and yeah, I think the comment stream is just a reminder of um, the many things that we remember from the show.
Mhm.
So what uh what do you like most about it? Which is just like let's just cut to the meat and potatoes and like
So
what captures what you like most about Miranda?
so first, I love the fact that it's a romantic comedy that's very aware it's a romantic comedy.
That's fair.
The show does play like a serious rom-com in the sense that the characters um, are clearly pining for each other, but there's all these little funny moments in between that causes you to wonder if, will they ever get together or not? Will they or won't they? And this and that, depending on the season you're watching. But beyond that, everything from the self-referential humor, they'll do a certain joke and they'll make sure to call that back in a later episode or in a later gag, as well as uh, the ending of every episode being a we will nod and remind the viewers that this is the part the credits roll.
Yeah,
Just
that's
really
true.
has that nice humor to it that I really like.
And I think Miranda as a character is really like that.
Mhm.
inner child, spirit animal, whatever you want to call it. But she is a celebration of that sort of more innocent or self. And as much as she obviously is an adult woman who has a shop as a job and does want to move forward in life and meet a man. Um, but she's also like unabashedly, still in love with the things that make her happy,
Mhm.
whether it is, talking to her little friends in her apartment
Mhm.
when she has these little play acting skits and stuff. I mean,
Or getting obsessed over a certain word.
and whether it is a word she likes or a word she doesn't like, or just being amused at the things that are in her own joke shop.
Mhm.
It's wonderful, and you don't often see that sort of exuberance and just willingness to not care because I enjoy it, and whatever if you don't. And that's a great sort of energy to bring to the table, and that's something I will super love about it.
So looking at some of the other comments, um, Karen shares she can relate with the singledom, which admittedly was an interesting way that they approached it. It wasn't, you know how in other shows that becomes the drama part, wherein they think
Mm,
about being single, they think about wanting love. Ally McBeal super squeezed it
that's true.
with every new album by what's her name, where she makes her covers with her piano. Um,
Don't remember.
I can't remember her name either. But here, even those moments where she's feeling sad or feeling lonely become fun moments because you see how she copes, whether it's indulging in food or celebrating her loneliness by making it a moment to sing or to dance or to have a fun time. Um,
Hey Jay.
and then you have all these characters, this collection of characters who just it's like the chemistry of the office wherein
Oh,
everyone
Nikki has
is
helped you, and it's Wanda Shepherd.
there. Wanda Shepherd, thank you. But everyone is a little bit just quirky enough that that's why they all work well together. The mother is obsessed with finding her daughter a husband, but at the same time is very proud of her active sex life, despite the fact that she doesn't want to say the word,
Yes,
and yet will say it when she tries to censor it out because she always censors things in the wrong moment, and stuff like that. You had her best friend,
Stevie.
Stevie. Are you gonna do the song? Because I'm
No.
not. If you want to see that song, you can check out Nick's story. Nick recently posted a story. But yeah, you have Stevie, who is super supportive but very judgy of her friend,
Mm.
which is how real friendships are.
And I think, actually, when you go through the cast, in many ways, in like classic like sketch comedy fundamentals, they're actually built around very specific behaviors that they just keep on doing,
Mm.
right? So we know that the mother will do everything she can to try to get a husband for
Mhm.
Miranda. And so many of her stories are defined around this. And then Stevie. Stevie is more or less career driven despite working in a joke shop with Miranda.
Mhm.
And again, yes, very judgy of her friend. So a lot of these like
And
core
very
behaviors.
proud of her allure.
Oh, oh, yes. But it's so a lot of these things that really just you could be worried that they become stereotypes or make the characters very
Mhm.
one dimensional, but they just work.
They make them more human, actually, the way the show does it. And Nick was asking if there was an episode with a penis lollipop.
That's the very first
It
one.
was chocolate.
Hmm.
Chocolate. Yes, Stevie, Javan asks. And then we, of course, have the physical humor, which
Oh my
many
god.
comedies do physical humor.
Especially on the British side of the fence.
Mhm.
I mean, like when you go look over a lot of the popular sitcoms, and not just thinking about Monty Python, but even
Mhm.
later things like I don't know, Faulty Towers and such.
Yeah.
I mean, physical comedy is like a very big thing.
Yeah.
For British humor. but the way it is executed in Miranda looks painful for Miranda, but definitely works.
What I like in Miranda's physical humor is the physical humor is just the intro to the joke. Whereas in
That's
most
true.
comedies, the physical humor is the joke.
Yeah, that it ends with like her on the floor. Instead, we have to see Miranda recover from tripping
Or
over.
the attempts to recover.
Oh well, that
Or
is
the
also
attempts
true.
to pretend nothing happened.
Yes,
And those are the points that make it golden. Everything from dancing at the club to stepping out from a cab to sitting on a fence.
and encounters with ball
Hey,
pits.
Carlo.
Hello, Carlo. So yeah, I mean, um, for such a short TV show run,
Mhm.
there is no episode that is not worth seeing. There is no episode that I wouldn't mind watching again and again. And I think we have watched Miranda at one point in time or another so many times. And apparently dating back to like 2013-ish,
Mhm.
we have been repeatedly telling people, have you seen Miranda? When people are asking about a show to get into, apparently we're always saying, have you seen Miranda?
We were trying to trace back how we encountered the show.
Yeah,
So
and then
Google searching chats.
our chat history doesn't talk about how we got into it, but how other friends have finally started watching
So
Miranda.
Blank has finally started seeing it. Got made sure Blank got a copy of the show and stuff like that. And oh my god,
That's our discussion. So yeah, and it's the show's a little timeless. I think it'll work for quite a while.
Mhm.
And uh, oh, oh. Yeah, but okay, it's not easy to watch in the sense of finding a way to watch it. I mean, it officially runs for a total of 3 series and a couple of specials that were done to wrap up the show.
Mhm.
In terms of the official like
Huh.
TV run, it is not available officially on any of the streaming platforms in the Philippines. So you're not gonna see it on Netflix or Prime Video
Mhm.
or anything like that. If you don't mind um, Spanish subtitles, a lot of the episodes happen to also be on YouTube for one reason or another with Spanish subs. The quality, of course, is less than great, as is the nature of shows that have magically found their way to YouTube.
Mhm.
So, but that's one way of seeing the show.
If you are curious to find out more about the show, be warned. This is not Miranda Sings, which is a different
YouTube personality,
cringe humor YouTube
which
personality
I never
type of
got
humor.
into.
No, not at all. Not that. No. Um,
We like a more joyful Miranda, and that's this Miranda, thanks to Miranda Hart.
so it might be easier to search Miranda with BBC included in your search. For those who are familiar with the show, we were pleased to find out that there was a recent, I guess it was a special or a one-off that was released last April regarding the pandemic as part of a BBC thing. So that's a little bit more Miranda for you if you miss it. And there's this strange Bear Grylls with Miranda episode that we haven't seen yet, but we're hoping to catch after doing the show.
Yeah, so I mean, there's still like some new Miranda content available officially on YouTube, and then
Mhm.
there's like some that's not official. So super love this.
Mhm.
And and once we get to welcome you formally into the Miranda fandom, then you're going to be like a lot of our friends in the comments
Mhm.
who are saying many things over and over because again, there are just so many good lines that are tied to
Mhm.
punchlines.
Mhm.
And I'm always torn between like I want to celebrate it right now with everyone, but at the same time I don't want to spoil it for people
Yes.
because when you see it, it's just funny.
And a lot of them become such memorable moments
Mm.
that when you find yourself remembering them, the reason they become so memorable is because you can't help but find yourself remembering similar moments in your own life,
That's true.
or worse, ever since the show, you now start to have similar moments in your life.
Maybe you were always having them and now you're just noticing them and you want to turn to an imaginary camera and say
Mhm.
like awkward, but so another thing which I think is it's just not always easy to notice or appreciate, but the joke setups in Miranda are absolutely amazing. I
Mhm.
mean, it's very subtle. There are maybe throwaway lines that you're going to hear in the first 5-10 minutes of the episode
Yes.
because then there's a lot of prattle, there's a lot of talking, but somehow that's gonna build up into being part of a big punchline
Yes.
reveal in the last 5 minutes. And if you were paying attention, then it
Mhm.
could totally make sense.
It's intelligent humor. In some ways similar to the likes of Community, had
Mm,
it been done by a British sensibility, because Community was a great show in the sense that the humor was smart.
very
You,
smart.
you you realize it was coming from talking about something they really wanted to talk about, and they find the humor in that topic. Miranda does that without leaving the realm of rom-com.
Yeah.
And even better, Miranda does it across episodes. So you might have build-ups that are set up, then later the payoff is a few episodes later. Um, Plus, they it's the type of humor wherein it knows it's coming. So they're gonna squeeze that moment out for you. So you know that there's going to be a moment where they're gonna talk about this because it was mentioned earlier. So when it finally comes, it's so satisfying to see it happen and cringeworthy because you know it's happening in that way. Um, if you are a fan of shows like Fleabag, Miranda can be described as the less adult version of Fleabag.
Although Miranda is quite old.
Yes, in the sense that Fleabag is a much more mature comedy with much more. I can't find the word for it.
Well, and definitely a character with more flaws.
Much more sexual humor and
Yeah,
much more
overtly sexual humor
and and Fleabag does touch on dark.
themes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
While Miranda stays in the funnier, lighter shade of things, despite the fact that it pretty much explores very similar topics.
That's true. I mean, because you still have a single woman who is dealing with like the challenges of family
Mm.
and things like that. I mean, there that fundamental aspect is very similar between
Hmm.
Miranda and Fleabag. They both turn to the camera, although sort of with different reasons and different contexts, and but then both work. But yeah, so we often make this comparison. I think we mentioned it
Mm.
before when we last talked about Fleabag, but how that interplay goes back and forth is still kind of fun. They're still very different shows and different experiences to enjoy in different moods. But I will admit, both are always amazingly good to watch. And Miranda is uh, I will never get tired of rewatching
Mhm.
Miranda. Absolutely, absolutely. And the same thing happened. We introduced Nico to Miranda late last year, and then ended up rewatching the whole series.
Mhm.
And it's because of its brevity. It is very possible to sort of binge it over a weekend again and again and again, and that's never a bad thing.
Let's go back to comments real quick.
Yeah, well, Jovan just says that when you think about Miranda as a guest, she's pretty much the same person, and the character is largely autobiographical. So that's
Mhm.
yeah, that's never going to go away. Um, and then the others, because they're all like spoilers. I mean, the sense that they're lines from the show, and then I don't wanna stress too much. It all works.
So Jovan shares Fleabag is wait, I lost it. Fleabag is the modern day version of Miranda, which is a way to view
That's a
it.
fair. That's a
If
fair
if
comparison.
Miranda sort of like captures um closer to not Monty Python, but the other one with the hotel. I forgot the name.
Faulty Towers. I
Faulty
said it
Towers, yeah.
earlier.
If it captures the Faulty Towers feel of comedy, wherein it's a lot of in jokes, a lot of humor, a lot of recurring gags. Miranda does have that more modern sensibility of humor, wherein there's a there's a darker
For Fleabag, you mean?
Fleabag has a darker self um, self almost destructive way of laughing at oneself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
And if we go back to the Miranda comparison to Faulty Towers still is based around characters you don't want to like,
Mhm.
whereas Miranda is like you kind of want her to be your friend only because sometimes you feel really bad for her and you want to help her out and things like that. Um, but I it amazes me at how much like great comedy moments were crammed into so short a TV show. And I
Mhm.
think I mean, each series only spans what 6 episodes in a series,
Mhm.
and yet there are so many different jokes, and thus the comments are littered with everyone's favorite lines, moments, running gags,
Mhm.
and such. And it says a lot. It says a lot about just how much good stuff was crammed
Mhm.
into this show. I think the only lament really is that it ends a little abruptly. The specials
Yes.
that sort of wrap up Miranda's arc were clearly an effort not to leave everybody hanging, but also recognizing that Miranda Hart was a lot busier with other projects. At the time, she was already, several seasons in for
Mhm.
Call the Midwife. And then she had that spy movie, right? Where she was a one of the supporting. She was like the Q.
Mm.
I can't remember the title now. I'm gonna have to look it up. Um, and and this, we continue to argue every time argue for people whenever they mention like, oh, they like Lucifer. Lucifer's fine, but then I feel like if you really want to appreciate him, you have to see him in Miranda
Mhm.
because he's such a different person.
I think his adorableness in Miranda is it stems from the fact that he looks like he's just being himself. I mean, we know he's
Mm,
acting, and we know whether it's in Lucifer and Miranda, he is an actor and he's acting. But the way Tom Ellis plays his role as Gary feels like a person and makes him all the more endearing compared to when he plays his role in Lucifer, where he's being so larger than life
yeah,
and so waxed to the high heavens that it just.
that is very quick judgment.
But
For
it
those who are
really.
wondering, the movie was Spy. Spy.
Okay,
Okay.
but it really does shift the appeal. And I guess in many ways, people who like Lucifer, it's more because they think the way Lucifer is portrayed is hot. But people who like Gary, it's because it looks like Gary feels like a real person.
Yeah. Don't you all want a Gary in your life?
Mhm.
Awkward and knows how to cook
So,
and looks good in a
what
military
other
uniform.
quick things we like about the show? Um, I like the fact that the two as a romantic couple um, really have that strong chemistry.
Mm.
I mean, there's the awkwardness, the size, the way they talk about things, but it all feels very natural. It all feels um, some rom coms they have that magic moment of
Okay.
you know they're so different, but suddenly oh look they're falling, and I don't know why. I guess the script needs them to fall that moment.
Ah, okay, okay. I get what you mean.
But
I thought like
here
falling in love.
But here there wasn't that sort of a feel. It has that nice natural swing to how they talk, how they interact, um, and I love when they both try to make excuses
Mm.
because things just get away from them as they try to put up some sort of pretense.
And that sort of really stresses how alike Gary and Miranda
Mm-hmm.
really are. Because they kind of have the same sort of defense mechanisms when flustered and such. And sort of adding on to that, I think the show, as far as a rom com structure goes, from the very onset establishes very quickly Miranda likes Gary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's super obvious. She tells us in her asides to the
Mm-hmm.
audience. Stevie knows that she likes Gary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And yet we spend most of the series her not dealing well with the fact that she likes Gary. And then Gary clearly has some interest as
Mm-hmm.
well, even as early as the first episode. But of course, it's hard to read the mixed signals that he gets
Mm-hmm.
from Miranda because of her awkwardness.
Um, so some comments. Mitch shares the meet cute moment. Yes. Karen shares Tom Ellis and Miranda have chemistry compared to Lucifer and his partner. So true.
Yeah, there's
Um,
something wrong about which I guess it's intentional, but his portrayal in Lucifer feels very remote from himself, or
mhm,
like it's such a heavy facade
mhm.
that it makes it a little harder to appreciate.
And a large part of that is because of the role. I mean, the Lucifer show does try to cast Lucifer in such a it's such a much more
Salesman-y, schwarmy role.
with a complicated, sensitive, um, angry at God for not doing this and that sort of
Mm.
angle, which I guess makes for great TV for that show, but does make him feel very larger than life, which I guess is intentional, but doesn't do wonders for him. And if you've never seen Miranda, I could see why Lucifer would be hot. But then once you've seen Miranda, I think you'd find Lucifer to feel a little bit more paper thin.
Yeah,
Um,
versus Gary.
I felt the same way with Rush in the few attempts to watch that series. It
Mm.
just didn't feel right. Um, and it was only in Rush that I realized how tall Tom Ellis really is. Because he is tall.
But still not quite tall enough for Miranda.
And that's what made I guess the chemistry even work so much more. Because if you look at other shows, there is this distinct either they'll make the angles interesting so the partner doesn't look too short, or there's a lot of creative shots of him slightly crouched while listening to the woman or something, just so that the height difference is not so pronounced.
Yes, Miranda's main achievement is the lack of a height difference. No, I'm kidding. So, yeah, and that's that's the bulk. I'm thinking what else we want to bring up. I mean, uh, the core was just Miranda. As much as it is a show sort of like titled to one person,
Mm-hmm.
it's really an ensemble piece, and everyone has their sort of roles to play in the comedy dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And that core cast being Miranda, her mother, her best friend Stevie, Gary, and then you have sort of supporting her schoolmate
Yeah,
and then the waiter at the restaurant where
Yes.
Gary works. And they have good lines too. They have good they have good moments too. But yeah, that it's really the core team of
Mhm.
Miranda, the mom, Gary, and Stevie that really shine, and thus they get to more often than not dance in the closing credits.
Yes.
And how they contrive gathering the cast together again for the closing credits is just it's fun and a recognition that hey, it's still a sitcom,
Mhm.
so we can do whatever we want and we're enjoying ourselves. And I think that's I guess my last thing is that it always feels like they're super enjoying what they're doing. That you feel like the cast really had a lot of fun making
Mhm.
this show.
According to some trivia I read, they actually rehearse an episode 3 days before the shoot,
Oh wow.
which tells you that there is attention in getting timing right,
Mm.
which is a art in comedy that I wish was practiced more in theater that tries to do farces and comedies. Because comedy does greatly require timing to be perfect. And I guess a large part of the chemistry of the show is the fact that they shoot it as live.
Mm.
So when they do the number, the cameras are all running, and then you have someone behind the scenes who's going, camera one, okay, cut to camera two, cut to camera three. And that's why everything feels on point because the humor, the timing, the gags are all happening in real time during that shoot. And
Ooh.
that's not to say they don't retake if they
Yeah,
have
of
to.
course.
But um, many American comedies rely on editing to make it funny,
Ah,
and then they have a lot of inserts or additional material shot later on. There might be a funny scene, but then they'll shoot it again in close up so that they'll have more angles of that moment, and that's why the comedy feels artificial in those
oh
moments.
my god, this no, it's okay. It's another episode.
What?
It reminds me of my GSP complaints. But did we need to cut to their hands? Did we? Did we? So just saying that we feel like good comedy, like any good show experience,
Mhm.
should be allowed to play out, and you have to give the audience a chance to notice the comedy or the funny
Yes.
moment happening, rather than steering the audience and pulling them by the nose and saying, "Hey, look here, because I'm doing a zoom on this
Zoom.
one thing happening." Ah,
But yes, comedy is not about the jokes. It's about the delivery,
it's the
it's about the
timing,
timing, and it's about knowing when to hold back because you need the audience to have that chance to laugh it out and to breathe.
man. And then if you get to watch the pandemic thing they did last year, which minor spoilers, but it does reunite the cast even remotely.
Mhm.
But it's just so nice to sort of see them quote unquote together, because they slip back into their characters so well and celebrate the same kind of crazy energy
Mm.
that they bring to the show. And that's just captures why Miranda is such a delight
Mhm.
and is perfect um, TV material to watch, especially in these often troubling times of 2020 and one.
Mhm.
So yeah,
I guess that's what I would close with. Given the challenges of 2020 and um, seeing 2021 isn't exactly, we're free from the sticky mess that 2020 was. If you need to start a new show that will not just give you an escape from the heaviness of the world, but is actually a show with humor that isn't heavy in itself.
but
Because
it's brilliant.
because a lot of humor is very funny, but then if you study it more, these are really disturbing.
Yeah, or it could be problematic, or
Then Miranda is a good thing that we'd recommend that you check out. Finding it might be a challenge, and we will leave you to be creative in how to do so. But if you want quick previews, BBC does have some shorts and clips available on YouTube. So
and
you
then
might
from
want to
there
look
you
those
can
up.
explore.
And beyond that, I'm sure you will find ways. If you find yourself someday breaking into song without warning and unable to stop yourself, then we know we have done our job in telling you about the show.
And you might be surprised that you know so many verses. Okay, couldn't get away from saying a line.
Any last few?
Nikki says that the duck and the shark in our show have a Miranda vibe, and that's very likely. I mean, like, puppetry is definitely a classic part of Miranda,
Of
and
course.
celebration. I mean, I think that Miranda also aligns in sort of the thrust of Baduy Pride, right? That we just want to be happy and fully in celebration of the things that we love, and Miranda's all about that too.
Yeah, Miranda has her fruit friends and vegetable pals.
Oh my gosh.
We have our sharks and our chugay,
Not to mention the many, many stuffed animals that live in our home.
which I'm not allowed to bring on the show.
Yes.
Yeah. That's all the time we have for this episode. We hope you had a lot of fun because it was such fun.
Such fun.
And we hope you'll join us again next time.
If you have questions or a question for us or suggestions for future episodes or shows that you're hoping we have seen and want to feature here, then fill out the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas.
Oh, you blend with the.
Yeah, I bang with the background, with the caption. And then you can follow us on Twitter, Altovino Shade, RG Sunico.
You could also check out our blog, baduypride.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below. How many Miranda references can you make in the comments? I think
Thrust.
moist. That we're at that point. It's just nuts. Then feel free
You
to
pass.
do so.
Oh my gosh, all these memories.
Be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live
That
stream.
was a moment.
Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And
this is Baduy Pride.
So what have you done today to make you feel proud?
There you go.
There. I said it. All right.